sure you've heard the quote, Afghanistan is the graveyard of empires. How do you respond to those who may agree with you in principle the need for a democratic state in Afghanistan, but think that it's an impossible task? But
well, Afghanistan is also the creation of empires. I mean, if you take the case everyone probably does remember, the destruction of the Bamiyan Buddhas, great cultural treasure of humanity, by the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, at the urging of Al-Qaeda, in fact, at the urging of Osama bin Laden, because these amazing monuments were not Islamic, because they testified to the fact that Afghanistan is the creation of Greeks, Macedonian Greeks actually, Alexander the Great's army, Hindus, there are many Christians, Buddhists, and so on. That couldn't have happened without the clash of, or the meeting point, the symbiosis of empires. So there's a truism to say this. In fact, the British once lost an entire army in Afghanistan. I mean, literally only one person came back, a doctor, I've forgotten his name, from Jalalabad. But they were able quite easily, not long after that, to restore their power in Afghanistan, to redraw the boundaries, I think, in the Durand Line, probably in a bad way. But nonetheless, it's not true to say that no one's ever succeeded in making a difference from the outside in Afghanistan, or indeed in India, which is what this was part of. India, you could say, was a graveyard of empires. It was also the creation of the British Empire as a country, albeit at the price of partition. It's a bit like saying democracy is not for export. Yes, it is. I mean, the French monarchy wasn't democratic, but without French weaponry there would have been no American Revolution. You'd never have heard of Thomas Jefferson if it wasn't for King Louis. So, history is ironic, and slogans of this kind have very little use in understanding them. In fact, they're of no use at all. The Russians, though, it's true, until the huge mistake that Brezhnev made in the late 70s, had consciously stayed out of Afghanistan. They thought the great historical lesson was, don't ever put your own soldiers in there. And, okay, everyone should bear that in mind, yes.
How do you see the conflict with Islamic jihadism ending? Do you see any historical analogies? Or
Yes. All jihads have always failed. Either they've been defeated or they've collapsed inwardly because of the impossibility of what they demand. Currently, the great demand of the jihadists, the one thing on which they all agree, Al-Qaeda or not, is on the restoration of the caliphate, the old Muslim empire. Incidentally, those who think these people are anti-imperialists are wrong precisely to that extent. They not only want an empire, they want an old one back, which is even more reactionary than wanting a new one. Well, what happened to the last one? Why does bin Laden say everything went wrong in 1918? Because it did. Because the Turkish Empire allied itself with German militarism, declared it a holy obligation of all Muslims to take Germany's side in the First World War. Big mistake. Hoped they would get the Muslims of India to rise against the British Empire. They didn't. Ended up not just losing the war, but losing their caliphate. They haven't got over that. So it's reassuring to know that what they demand is impossible. They couldn't get it, even if we wanted them to have it, even if we thought maybe that would shut them up. They still can't have it. If they had it, they couldn't run it. You can't run anything like a modern society out of one book and its barbaric precepts. You can't run a modern society, or even a pre-modern one, really, if you deny yourself the talents of half your population, the female half, and so forth. And there's no real religion, furthermore, can't define a nationality. I mean, the only real attempt in the 20th century to create a state based on Islam was Pakistan. It was a failed state in every possible definition of that word, and slaughtered half its own people in Bangladesh. People forget this. Fell apart. Is falling apart now, because there's nothing that gives enough commonality between a Baluchi, a Punjabi, a Kashmiri. The fact that they think the same religion. No. Anyway, which version of Islam is it going to be? I can think of 5, none of which would work, all of which hate each other. So no, their defeat is inevitable. This is going to be very painful and boring, so I have to do it. And it will involve us saying just one thing that they say, only one. We understand this bit about being offended and having unalterable convictions. We can be offended too, and we also have principles that we would never change. Right. I'd like to hear a bit more of that.
changing tracks a little bit. Do you believe in some kind of free will, or do you subscribe to determinism, incompatibilism?
Determinism is a sinister idea because it suggests in a way that the future has already taken place. It has this much to be said for it. We do, thanks to the laws of physics, not of philosophy, we do roughly know how our world is going to end, and even in what way, and roughly what time. So a lot of what's going to happen to us is inscribed when we're born. That's overarchingly true, but it's rather like the creationist interpretation of evolution. It would involve so much micromanagement by the divine of so many different impulses and interactions. What would be the point of it? It wouldn't be a plan at all. It would just be an attempted superimposition of chaos. So when I'm asked, I say I naturally believe in free will because I think we have no choice. At least I know that the irony there is an irony, and it's partly at my expense. But those who say no, of course we have free will, the boss says we have to have it. Well, not even being ironic, barely even literal. It's just stupid. So, of course we have free will. It's a gift. It's compulsory. You can't not have it. Well, that's what Jeremy Bentham called nonsense on stilts.